Welcome to the Cookbook, where we invite guests on to share the ingredients of what has helped make them the successes that they are. All of it, the good, the not so good. You're not going to find anything half-baked here. And our kitchen gets messy sometimes. That's when the fun starts. So come on and join us. Okay, so hey, there are times when we all could use a little extra help and support in our lives. Whether there's something you're struggling with or just seeking connection with other people who understand what it's like to be in your situation, Anovia Behavioral Health can help. Anovia is a subscription-based organization that provides unlimited access to a wide variety of educational, experiential, and therapeutic support groups that are led by live expert facilitators. Now, you can get 20% off your membership with the discount code Cookbook20 when you subscribe. Check it out today at AnoviaBH.com. Anovia, feel better. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Cookbook. I'm Iris Goldfeder, your host, and I'm very excited about our guest today, Dr. Doreen Downing. She's a psychologist and founder of the Essential Speaking Institute. I'm going to read her bio and then bring her on. So Dr. Doreen Downing is a psychologist and founder of the Essential Speaking Institute. She once suffered from stage fright and avoided stepping into the spotlight. And man, I know what that's like. In conquering her fear, she discovered that being connected to your authentic self is the key to relaxed and confident speaking. And I can't wait to talk about this because this is so true. She now specializes in the treatment of public speaking anxiety and is the author of the book Essential Speaking, the 7-step guide finding your real voice. You can download her 7 secrets to fearless speaking at Doreen7steps.com. So without further ado, let's meet Dr. Doreen. Hi.
Well, Iris, hello. Thank you for reading that. I know it was short, but
It was very short.
And you know, it's more about the people getting to know who I am through listening to me and being with me.
Right. And I had the pleasure of being a guest on your podcast the other day. And, you know, it's funny when you talk about stage fright, I come at it from a different, different angle being a musician. What I didn't talk about was the first presentation that I ever had to do that I was literally thrown into. And I'd never done one before. And it was like, I'm not gonna say how many years ago, but, I had to do it and I read it. Like I just read what was on the screen because I had no idea. I didn't even know how to use PowerPoint back then. So, and my biggest fear up till COVID was speaking in public on camera. I could sing in front of 5,000 people and it doesn't even, whatever. But speaking was so scary. And now it's a lot easier. I think if you don't get nervous to me, I feel like you're not invested, if that makes sense. I think, and maybe that's right, because I think it's that adrenaline, right? You're getting excited to talk and you're like, oh my God, and I think there may be a difference between being excited and being like, oh my God, I'm going to throw up or something before I get out there. So let's talk about, how you overcame your stage fright and give a little bit of a taste of how you help people overcome their fear.
Yeah, I think what you just introduced, the being excited and having energy, is partly what the adrenaline is meant to do, is to get you motivated to do something. And what the problem is with people that I work with is there's just too much of that adrenaline and it shoots into their brain, into their heart, and they choke and it really interferes. So let's see, you were talking about so anyway, thank you for presenting this situation. And it's exactly what the people I work with have to face, is the overabundance of anxiety, that adrenaline. And how did I? Well, it's interesting that I got a PhD in psychology and I only had to work with one person at a time in my office, and nobody knew Iris, nobody knew that I had anxiety about speaking in front of a group. And I would be in a meeting, just 6 other psychologists, and we go around and present our cases. By the time it got to one person, 2 people away from me, my heart was beating so fast. And I felt like I could barely, just
Wow.
step into that moment. And there were only maybe 6 other people, peers, and I had a PhD. So what was that about? And so that was the beginning of me really saying, okay, there's something wrong here. And I had the wake up call actually was when I was asked to present my research at a conference, and I said, no way. Mm-mm. No, I'm afraid of speaking in public.
Wow.
And the organizer pretty much said, what's wrong with you? Right. In other words,
And
what's,
you're like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. What's
Wow.
wrong with you? It fears your business, isn't it? And I think that was a moment where the PhD, all the years of professionalism and having actually a pretty successful private practice disappeared. And I was kind of naked in front of this organizer who was kind of poking at me. So,
Oh, that
ah,
didn't help, I'm sure.
well, I think it felt like finally, okay, all right, all right, all
You need to do
right.
something about this.
Yeah, so
Mm.
I signed up for a class in San Francisco, Overcoming the Fear of Public Speaking. Is that something? Is that something? PhD from Berkeley in psychology, and I go to San Francisco to sign up for a public speaking, how to get over your fear class.
Yeah, but, physician heal thyself, right? I mean, you can't.
Yes.
Just because, it's funny. I come across so many people that, say what you've said. It's like, I have a degree in this and I have this, but yet I had to go somewhere else for that. Well, because how do you guide yourself away from that path, right? I mean, it's hard. When you're in it, how do it? It's like, and this is going to be a really bad analogy, but you're in an abusive relationship and you don't realize it until you realize it. So when
Yeah.
you
Uh-huh.
and you have to go for outside help, right? So
Yeah.
for this,
Yeah.
how do
Well,
you get over that yourself?
you have to step towards the fear. And I think that finally was the answer is, okay, I need to find some place that feels at least safe for me, at least the topic, other people are there. And it's about coming to terms with what is this fear about? And even having, for whoever the listeners are today, that first step, stepping towards the fear, whether it's picking up a book or journaling and asking yourself to do some self inquiry, or um, any kind of help that you can. I know that there's lots of YouTube videos now. In fact, I even have my whole channel based on that. But uh, the journey, I think, and this is what I know you talk about differentiation, Iris. And I would say that what differentiates me from other people who help people with public speaking anxiety is that I think it's an inside job. It's not about making a better speech. It's not a Toastmaster thing. I mean, I did Toastmasters for 7 years.
Wow.
I know how to get on a stage, but I didn't really take care of the little one inside who is really more tender, precious, vulnerable. You might say it was just where my fear was exposing more of my true self.
Wow. And that can be scary, right? Especially, so where were you at with your true self? Like, were you comfortable with you? Because I find that um, as I've grown in my career, what's made me uh, better, I guess, is being comfortable with me, being able to be 100% authentic and not caring anymore. you
Well,
know?
I felt like in my office, I was definitely authentic, even though I was hiding my fear, but I felt like I was comfortable and able to engage. And my listening is really, I love deep listening, listening into the crevices that people present. And I think that that was what I felt like I knew how to be and listen to people, but I just didn't know how to be and listen in a group.
Ah, okay. So so how did you get past that?
Okay. Toastmasters is the beginning, right? A lot of
Right.
people try that, and a lot of people find success in that, and as I just said a second ago, I, uh, I stayed for 7 years and I think learned a lot of techniques, you might say,
Like,
some
don't say, like, stop saying, I remember I was in it as well, and I always say and I still say, and one of my guests, Pallavi, Ridout is she's a coach, and we were talking offline, and she said, like, she watched one of my episodes, and she said, "I think it's amazing, but you say, so much." And I was
Mhm,
like, "You're right." And then
mm.
and then when we did our interview, she said, and I went, "Ah," right, "Ah," so, but it was so funny, and I still say, and I know that it's that, if I pause, I
Uh-huh.
don't, but when I'm in the moment, it's hard to pause. Like, for me, it's
Yes.
very hard to pause, and in Toastmasters, they make you so cognizant of it that I would almost be like, okay, pause, and then continue instead of, saying the and then I think I was in it for like 6 months, and then I think after my last one, I was like, I don't know that I'm ever going to stop saying so
Uh-huh. There you go, self-acceptance.
yeah, and I haven't.
Uh-huh.
um no, I'm kidding.
Uh-huh.
But go
Right.
ahead.
Well, there's the, "Ooh, you're doing something wrong. Ooh, you're doing something wrong." Click, click,
Yes.
click. And I
How
think
about
that
what am I doing right?
right, that's it.
Yes.
Yes, and I have a process where I did it today on a call with a whole group of people, and it's about finding the essence of who you are, and it's the quickest way I can describe that is of a jewel, you might say, like a diamond or some kind of gemstone that's inside of your belly, and it's there and it shines. And finding your way to learn how to. I just did like how to go down, drop down to the core where this brilliance is inside of you. And I know you said something about my voice yesterday, and it is something I feel like my voice has a resonance because it comes from deeper inside
Mhm.
rather than talking at people. I feel like I drop down and I find my warmth, my love, my what I feel is just a kind of an energy that radiates goodness. And even just right now with you, wow, falling in love with you. That's what I do with people each moment. They no longer scare me. And if I have 1,000 people, it doesn't scare me because I know how to look within people and find their jewel, their brilliance. Isn't that amazing to be
Eh,
able to
yeah.
help people overcome fear because they know how to go beyond what the judgment that they are imagining in people to what is really true, the essence inside of people.
And it's funny, there's a saying, what other people think of you is none of your business. And
Uh-huh.
it was funny because I used to always worry about
Mhm.
what people thought about me. And when I stopped, that was when Authentic Iris was, just
Born.
born out. And because I had a coach tell me like 6 years ago, said, be less you.
Uh-huh. Oh.
Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean? Well,
Uh-huh.
you're with a bunch of introverts and you're a real big extrovert. So you should pull back a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And I did.
Yeah.
And I got clients, but they weren't the right clients, right?
Ooh,
Because
good
they
point.
weren't drawn to me. They were drawn to
Yeah,
fake me.
yeah.
And I've never been fake in my life. Like, anybody who knows me will tell you I am not fake.
Uh-huh.
But for that 8-month period, I really, And I said to my wife, I was like, wow, maybe it's the Midwest thing. I need to really pull back. And I did. I got 4 clients and I lost 4 clients because when the real me came out, they didn't know what to do.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
now people are drawn to me because of who I am.
Right.
And you said something, oh gosh, you said, uh, oh, it'll come back to me. There was something that you said, uh, not the authentic piece. We'll come back to it, but there was
Okay.
something about,
Well,
almost,
there's something that you just said that I'd like to make a
yeah,
comment on.
absolutely.
And that was you being yourself and then somebody telling you, hey, tweak it a lot or a little, that's what I've gotten from people because I am quieter and I'm gentle and I have this, I like to make it safe for people. And I have this, this kind of warmer, softer sense about myself. And it's like, come on, get out there, put your power suit on. And I have to, Iris,
You
my
wear your
power
power
suit
suit.
is deep within me. It's in my
Mhm.
listening and it's in my way of being with people. And so I'm so glad you just said that about finding what's authentically you, the true you. And I don't have to be a powerhouse with my arms
Yeah.
pounding and prancing on a stage.
I remember I was gonna say, and it was about focusing on the positive, not the negative, right?
Uh-huh.
So when I work with people, people come to me because they need help, with their marketing, with, their voice, in a different way than yours. And I look at what are you doing that's working
Uh-huh.
so that we focus on the good instead of going, oh man, don't do that. Don't
Yeah.
do that. No, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like, no, 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 no. What are you doing that's working? Awesome. Let's focus on that. You focus on that piece. We'll focus on it with you to help you get even greater there. And then we're going to focus on these other areas. And it's never negative. I
Yes.
know so many people that are
Mhm.
like, oh, you shouldn't do that way. And you shouldn't be doing this. And you should, who the hell wants to work with somebody who's scolding them all the time?
Mhm. Good
Right.
point.
And
Uh-huh.
so I make sure that I come from a place of, like you said,
Mhm.
love and empathy and compassion. Because when you're working with people, and especially if that person is the brand,
Yes.
now you're working with their hearts.
Uh-huh.
And I take that very seriously
Mm.
because I don't ever want my heart broken and I am never going to break somebody's heart. So, I think that it's very, I say I have a heart centered business. And when I say
Mhm.
that, I truly mean it. I come from a place of, I want you to feel good about what you're doing. I don't want you to feel bad about anything that you've done. And I don't want you to regret anything that you've done so far because you've done it. And, whether you had the results that you wanted or not, you did it and you tried. How many people don't try? So at least you gave it that effort, right? And I am never going to make somebody feel bad about that. And um, so what you said earlier sparked that in me because I think that's so important. And especially when it comes to speaking, when you have somebody telling you
Yes.
you're saying that word wrong, or you're doing this wrong, or you should be standing like this, or you should be showing up
Uh-huh.
like this. That's like, how do you not like freak out and be like, oh my God, like I never want to get out there and do that because of all
Uh-huh.
the criticism. There's criticism, and then there's, a way to advise people kindly, I think.
Yeah, when I used to do in person, people would stand up, and the coaching I might do is if the person is got their hands crossed in front of their chest like this,
Yeah.
most public speaking training would be saying like uncross your arms, right? And so they might uncross their arms, but their shoulders are still up and they're still tight in their chest. So the whole nother approach is to let them find the comfort first, and then pretty soon the arm lets loose. One of them does because they feel like they're connected more to them. selves naturally. And then pretty soon there's a gesture, a natural gesture that
Mhm.
unfolds. And that's the way that I love working with people is helping them unfold into themselves.
I love that so much because there are so many people that, you know, I mean, when I used to be one of those like this,
Uh-huh.
right? And it's actually that is kind of comfortable. I know that people look
Yes.
at it as you're in a defensive stance, but it's
Uh-huh.
comfortable. My arms are down. If I was like this,
Right.
then yeah, obviously I'm freaking out. But if I'm, down like this, I'm very comfortable and whatever. But it takes time. I mean, it
Yeah.
was funny because for me it took COVID
Uh-huh.
to like I this podcast never would have happened if it wasn't for Kofi and Nina Fareep, who I did the video challenge with back in 2020. And I just had to step back this month because I just haven't had time. But I've been working with her for 3 years, and it was a matter of you know not worrying about how you look per se, meaning physical appearance, right? Not how you
Mhm.
dress or whatever, but like the thing that I had in my head was, ooh, anybody that's on TV is, one of the beautiful people. And so if I'm doing video, and that's not me. But it was, I found out after a month or whatever, because a month into COVID, nobody looked like a movie star at that point. Everybody was just kind of their natural selves because they weren't leaving the house. They couldn't get their stuff done. Right. So,
Yeah.
and it was all about the message, and it was always about the message. But it took that to, make me go, oh, okay. People don't care about that. They just want to know they want to know what you have to say. Like if what you have to say is valuable, that's all that matters. And it's, what value you bring, not how you look. And that was huge for me because it was like, I got a lot to say and I got a lot of things that I can, put out there. And, 3 years later, I still do. So, and then we started this in, gosh, it's almost a year, which is insane. I think we started it in like April or May.
Hmm.
So I can't believe we're, a year in. And this is one of my favorite things that I do. It's like my passion project. Um, I get to, you know, meet new people and, learn about their lives. We actually have a sponsor that I'm going to plug right now, Inovia Behavioral Health, actually. And they are, uh, it's behavioral health solutions for everyday people. And they have groups. And their groups consist of, and I'm going to read it off of their website because there's so much: women supporting women in recovery, Lujang yoga, family recovery support tools. There are English groups, there are Spanish groups. And it's, normally you have something like this and you have to pay per group. This is a monthly subscription and you get all of the groups, as many as you need. And it's inoviabh.com /subscribe. And if they use the promo code Cookbook 20, they get 20% off their monthly subscription. So, but as, somebody who, is into, helping people, this thing is amazing. Overcoming burnout, emotional sobriety, first responder support. Do you have anxiety? Crush the grip of nicotine addiction. And these are groups that people can just go to and talk and, get support. So it's awesome. And I'm honored that, they're sponsoring this. So it's kind of cool. But see, you should do a group there you know, uh, for public speaking. But one of the things that I find really interesting in what you do is what, as you say that, and to get to that inner jewel, I've never heard it put that way. I think that that's such a uh, loving perspective of what we have inside of us.
Nice way to put that. I like that reflection. Obviously, you listened.
Well, I do listen. That's, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's wonderful.
yeah,
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear it back in somebody else's words. The way you said it felt like, well, it was exactly like I said it, but I love hearing the way it's taken in and then translated. And the whole what you just did, the what you I was just did, you just demonstrated the feel for in your voice. You just dropped down and it got a little bit more resonant.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think when you connect,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
you can have conversations with people, but you don't necessarily connect.
uh-huh,
Um,
yeah,
and I have the privilege of everybody who's on here I connect with.
yeah,
There's just this connection. And with you, though, it's different because there's this, as you said, resonance to your voice that is so freaking calming. It's like, who needs anxiety medicine? Just talk to you for like a half hour and you're like, you're good to go.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
I
so
love wrapping. I love embracing, and I love wrapping the moment with all that's possible and the potential that we have. Wow, two human beings that found ourselves and are now living out loud and sharing our journeys.
yeah.
And
And
I
it's
love
all about
getting to know
the
you.
journey, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Uh-huh.
so many people worry about the destination and it's like, don't worry about that. You'll get there. Enjoy the journey. I've seen so many people that just worry about where it's going to end up.
Hmm.
Where am I going to be in a year? Where am I going to be in 2 years? I know. See, even Skylar agrees. For me, it's I,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I know where I think I'm heading, and I know what I want and what my goal is. But man, there's a whole journey, and already like 2 months, 3 months into the year, things have shifted.
Uh-huh.
That it's like, oh, okay, that kind of changed it, but in a
Mhm.
good way, right?
Mhm.
And so to me, it is all about the journey and the people that you meet along the way, because you never know what's going to happen on this journey, and that's going to change what you think is going to be, I think, anyway.
Well, I'm a traveler. I was in the Peace Corps early on in my life, and I just fell in
Yeah.
love with entering into a new area, a new country, and using everything I had, my senses, my openness to discover the next moment. And I think that there's something about the inner journey that has me still be so fascinated with what it takes to discover more of what's inside of us. And you talked about we're talking about journey, and this journey inside, that's what I've mapped out in my book. And believe it or not, when we're talking about speaking, the first step in the journey, of course, is looking at the fear. What's the cause? And that's, as a psychologist, that's my expertise, is to get at the underlying roots. And I have some stories. I don't know if it's appropriate to talk about some of the stories, but I'll just name one, a woman who felt like when she was in a group, she was going to be pounced on. And what we did when we did that deep inner journey, we connected with a root where she had been pounced on by a dog in the neighborhood that she had to go through every day through school. So it was trauma. So a lot of
Wow.
speaking anxiety shows up. I mean, it was just so obvious. She said pounced, and she used the same word, and I went, oh, and she went, oh. So what do we
Those
do
light
when we
bulb moments
find
are
a
amazing.
what do we do when we find a root? And that's what I love about psychology. Is there's all sorts of treatment strategies, talking to the voice inside or the little one inside, the journaling. There's so much. But
Mm.
so we do the first fear uncovering, revealing and connecting the dots. And then now this is huge. The first Well, it's a 7 secrets, but the first one is be still. How does that, how people are coming in to get over fear and they want to learn how to speak. And I'm talking about learning how to be still inside and how to do it in a snap eventually.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a training. It's a,
Wow.
some people do it meditation. There's all sorts of techniques I offer, but I don't tell anybody what they have to do. It's, we have a smorgasbord of choices to learn how to still your actual, earlier today we talked about the adrenaline, and how do you get this mind that's going, you're gonna fail, you're too boring, people are gonna walk out, all that mind stuff. How to just wipe that clean and to feel like there's an open channel that goes down to this jewel, which is way down underneath the anxiety.
Interesting. And I love that inner journey because I think that we all go on it, right? It's just a matter of, well, actually, that's not true. We that are
Right.
willing go on it.
Yes.
'Cause a lot of people don't want to know what, they don't want to know what lies, beneath. And
Uh-huh.
um, I think that, I think like these
Oh,
last,
that was great. What lies beneath and even the drama of
I
it.
mean, it's true, right? Because we all have this, there's like this, inherent something in us. And I think that as we grow, we have choices. And I think, we can choose to look within and I don't want to say fix what's broken because I don't like that.
Hmm.
I would say it's hard to look within and see the there is some muck and mire in there. I mean, when you have trauma, there
Mhm.
is stuff in there that, it's hard to look at. Uh, and if you're willing to,
Mhm.
the reward is just phenomenal. But it takes time and you know, it's hard. It's hard. And it's almost like I remember when I really committed to I'm going to be 100% authentic. What does that mean? In your podcast, we talked about the 7-year-old girl, and everything made sense of why, I made all the decisions that I made. But when I really looked inside and I looked at who Iris is fundamentally, um, it was getting through all the goop to get to me.
Uh-huh.
Um, and when I got there, it was like, oh, you're freaking awesome.
Uh-huh. Yes. Yeah.
It's like you are
Uh-huh.
awesome. And to be able to say that and know that I believe that. And it
Mm.
took years. But I know I am awesome and I'm a lot of fun and I'm great at what I do. And it really took a long time to be able to embrace that and accept it. I mean, how crazy is it that you can't accept that you're awesome?
Right.
But
Exactly.
a lot of people don't. They lose that awesomeness or they don't see the awesomeness that maybe, or not that maybe, that other people see. They can't see it in themselves.
Well, it's the belief. I think you mentioned that, the believing, like you finally believed. I know a lot of times when people start with me, it says, I can't imagine ever being comfortable speaking in front of other people. And that's where we have to start. You can't imagine
Yeah.
it. So I have to hold the belief and the vision for a while,
Wow.
right?
So were you always because we never really touched on this. Have you always been an entrepreneur or what made you decide to become an entrepreneur?
I think that I have always been an entrepreneur. My when this kind of goes together with that question, and also what my early trauma was around speaking and my voice. We lived with my sister and I lived with my grandmother, and my grandmother would take care of us because my mother was in and out of the hospital for depression, severe depression.
Sorry.
And she had even been in a mental institution and had shock treatment. So she was really severely depressed.
Wow.
Lovely, beautiful soul, and probably a little ahead of her times. So people had to try and contain her. But so my grandmother would say to me, shh, you better be quiet or your mother or your mom's going to go back to the hospital. And so you can see that I got to hold my breath. I got to hold my voice. I can't speak up very highly or else mom's going to leave again. And so that repeated kind of, I think, is when I did that very, very, very deep dive, like you're talking about your deep, deep dive. That's what I discovered, is that it was a way to silence me early on, but not intentionally, but it was, if I did speak up, somebody's going to go away.
Yeah, but
So
that doesn't sound non-intentional to me. I mean, you tell somebody that, what do you think the end result is gonna be?
right, right.
That's
And a little girl,
crazy.
5 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what I mean. It's, oh my god,
yeah.
I can't
So
even.
so that
Wow.
yeah. And but what you're saying also is, well, then how does this work out to my business, but also being an entrepreneur? Well, my sister, I took care of my sister. And when my mother was getting well, I took care of her. And there was a way in which I learned at 5, 6, 7 years old how to manage myself, how to manage little one, my sister, and how to manage getting myself into schools. And I think that there never, ever became a way in which I wanted to work for anybody. I think that my spirit of being myself, my leader, my whatever, what we're calling entrepreneurship, happened. I think that's the root of it, way back when.
Wow.
I
Wow.
don't think I ever considered anything else.
Other than working
I
for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I did the internships in UC Berkeley, where you had to go out and work for an agency to practice your counseling skills, I didn't pick an agency. I picked a woman who had a program called Getting Clear, and it was about early signs. For me, it was about getting clear about who you truly are. So I said, okay, I want you to be my my mentor or something, and I'll do all the paperwork. And so that's how I got my internship, is I created my own internship. And then upon, I only thought about a private practice, whatever it took early on, getting out on the streets, calling doctors' offices, showing up at agencies and meetings and saying, hi, this is who I am and this is what I do, and little workshops. And that's how
Wow.
I grew my business, was putting myself out there. And it's interesting juxtapositioning what we're doing about how I put myself out there, but I was still scared. Right? But I was growing a business, I wasn't growing myself so much. So,
Wow. Um,
mhm.
wow. That's that's wow.
Yeah.
I'm still stuck on your mom with the shock treatment thing. And
Uh-huh.
you know, I think about how things were back then.
Yeah, 50s.
Y-
For me, I
Yeah.
was younger
Oh,
on the 50s, way
okay.
back.
So, so, and yeah, shock treatment was big, especially for women who spoke out. So,
Yes.
so your mother
Yeah.
probably, you know,
Uh-huh.
wow, that's a whole nother conversation because wow,
Uh-huh. Okay.
um, it just, yeah, it frustrates me because, as a woman and as a strong woman, they're still trying to silence us.
Mhm.
And I think of that, and then what you went through because of that is, wow, that's just, that's intense. Um,
But what we're talking about too, my dear, is that anything that life puts in front of us, we can, if we have the support and the tools, transform it into
yes. Yes.
something positive or
Well, and you did,
powerful.
right? And you did.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I just, when I think back of, because I was, a 60s latchkey kid.
Mhm.
And, you know, my mother was very unavailable, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, and so I had to really fend for myself. And I never thought of like the entrepreneurial spirit until, like working for people. And it took like years of working for people going, I can't work for anybody anymore.
Uh-huh.
I just,
I could never do it. I could never
yeah,
do it.
yeah. I mean, so I give you credit for finding that out so soon because I wish
Yeah.
I found that out 20 years ago. It would be a whole different conversation. Um, but the fact that, I did, and um, I was able to, recognize, because I became an entrepreneur the second time around out of necessity. I got fired.
Uh-huh.
And it was like, do I collect unemployment? Do I find another job? And it was like, no. Skylar agrees.
Mhm.
I was like, I can't go back to working for anybody
Mhm.
because, they don't appreciate my vision. You can stop now. And uh, and I'm glad that I listened to myself because, now it's a whole nother story. So what advice would you have for, speaking of which, somebody who is thinking about becoming an entrepreneur?
I like the idea of tapping into who you truly are first, what you love, what you believe, this jewel that I talked about, but then look back in your life and where did that naturally start to show up already? Uh, in terms of, yeah, my independence started pretty early, and but there's either a dream that people have always had. It wasn't a dream for me. It was just something I learned early in life how to manage those. That's what a business is. Business is life, and so that the whole idea of I'm kind of talking about it out loud. It's not like I have the answer. So I'm kind of, as I'm speaking, even kind of finding my answer in terms
Mhm.
of what I would suggest for people. And I guess two things is tapping in to wherever the deepest desire is inside of you. But I also like the idea of, hey, you've already done it. You've already been there, I bet, somewhere along your life. And it might have been reduced or taken away from you. But today in one of my programs, I was tapping into what people felt about themselves. And one woman says, from very early on, I was told that when I walk into the room, there's kind of a sense of peace. And she goes, I think that's what I do. I bring peace. Oh, that kind of self reflection, looking back and making connected dots. That's what I'd say.
Wow, that's interesting. Um, because I never even thought, and you're the first person who's ever even said that, like, look back at a time when you've already done it. Um, and as a latchkey kid, I had to teach myself how to cook. I
Yeah.
fed myself. I got myself to school, to home, and you know, I learned how to, you name it, and I can cook it. I ended up being a professional cook because of that.
Iris, yes. And gas stove,
Yes,
creates.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
the through thread is there.
That is so funny. I didn't. Wow. I'm
Wow.
sorry. I'm just having like a moment right now because the Gas Stove Creative came from my last name, my partner in name. He was like my partner in name only when we started this, and my wife's last name. We were like, what can we do with GSC?
Uh-huh.
because I wanted to use those three initials. And after like 11 hours, it was like gas stove creative. And
Yes.
then it was like, where did that even come from? But holy
Wow.
crap.
Yes, you just did it. Yeah.
Kofi, are you freaking? I'm like freaking out right now. So I'm like sitting here going, oh my God. It was like my subconscious and not even,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That,
Yeah. You're open to discovering more, and when life puts up a mirror, you go, "I get it." That was wonderful.
wow. Oh, I'm very self-reflective, but when you said
Yeah.
that, I just went, oh my God. See, again, everything falls into place. It's so, it is so weird because when you, like you said, when you look back
Uh-huh.
on your life and then you look at those things, the things just like fall into place.
Yeah.
They just fall into place. That is amazing. Um,
Mhm.
man, okay.
Yeah.
I don't have very many moments like this, so I'm I'm a little taken aback. Uh, but what a revelation that is. Okay, so everybody listening, you have just okay. My friend Michelle always says, "I've never seen you speechless." There was an event that uh, happened 8 or 9 years ago. I don't even know now. Where I started a not for profit because I heard a woman speak about this horrific abuse that she had uh, gone through um, and survived and talked about it 3 months later.
Mm.
And the story was so horrific. And I was literally,
Mm.
mouth agape. And Michelle looked at me and said, I've known you 7 years and I have never seen you speechless.
Mm. Mm.
Um, that's kind of how I feel now. That's just such a revelation. Like, oh my God, gas stove creative. Now I have a whole another story about
Story.
that. Whew.
Yeah.
And it's all about stories, right? So, um,
Yes.
what is an obstacle that you've overcome? Because people listening to this are also seasoned entrepreneurs. And we all go through stuff, right? There's always something that we've gone through that maybe somebody is going through now, and you've gone through it and you've overcome the obstacle. What is something that
We've talked about it for the past 30 minutes.
well,
Speaking.
so is it, I mean, but is it that, or was there anything else that
No, no, it was in the beginning when I started my practice, it was sitting with other psychologists, and they were all seemed very together, and I felt like I was much more tender, and I wanted my work was about transformation, not about treatment strategies and DSM diagnosis and whoever is a hysteric or an OCD. I just went, huh, that is like putting people in cages. And, I'm not going to a zoo. I am actually wanting to be with real humans who are finding the most potential, beautiful sense of positivity that they can. And so I think, first of all, in starting my business, I was with other psychologists, and I felt like this isn't really the people I was with didn't that was a challenge. That was you're talking about an obstacle, is feeling my difference. And what you've said, Iris, about differentiation, claiming your differentiation, I wasn't able to then. And so if somebody's moving into their own business and wanting to be an entrepreneur, they really have to like deeply know that that's their truth. Yes.
wow.
And now I do know. I'm not a public speaking coach. I am an expert at helping people overcome anxiety, and I have a 7-step mindful method to do that with and find your voice. So I'm very clear, and I don't need to be a traditional psychologist.
Wow. There are so many layers to you. I just find you so like interesting and refreshing and uh, like nurturing and calming. I mean, I think of all these adjectives, right? But
Uh-huh.
there's something about your presence that uh, Yeah, and I'm still, my mind is still blown about the gas stove thing. Like, I never even like associated that. So, you know, my wife's going to get home and I'm going to be like, "You're not even going to believe this," and of course I believe it. So,
Well,
um,
that's what I was talking about in terms of connecting the dots. I
yes,
love the puzzles that we are, and I love saying, "Well, what about this piece and this piece?" And
and then
that's
they're like,
yes,
it's like my therapist years ago used to call it. She would say, "I love your light bulb moments because they're
yes,
so." She's like, "You're so
uh-huh.
animated
You're
that
right.
when it hits you, you just see it."
Uh-huh.
Because, I was in therapy and she'd say, "Why are you feeling this?" And I'd be like, "I don't know. I'm paying you to tell me." And she's like, "No, no, no. You're paying me to help you figure it out."
Yes.
And when I realized that, after, I think it was like
Uh-huh.
2 years, it was just so funny. I would always in every session get that moment. And she told me, because, we speak every once in a while now, and she's like,
Uh-huh.
I would wait in every session because I knew it was coming. And I
Uh-huh.
didn't know when it was coming, but I knew it was
Oh,
coming.
I love those moments. I know exactly what you're meaning. And I think that goes back to me loving travel. Is like you go around a corner. Uh, One of the best nights of my life was in Venice, and I only had about 10 hours there. And I parked my bags at a low rent place by the train station and just started wandering, and ended up that night meeting people where I stayed all night in the grandest hotel in Venice.
Wow.
And then next morning to catch the train, I went back and got my bags and hopped on the train.
That is
But that kind of
awesome.
wow, wow inside of us. And if I could help people even approach those traumas with a I wonder what's in it, that is the gold.
Wow. And all who wander are not lost, right? So,
Ooh.
ah.
Ah.
um,
Oh, that's
my,
wonderful.
I have a friend, Nicole, uh, who that was her thing on Facebook, like forever, was all who wander are not lost. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
I love that so much. Um, and that goes back to the journey, right? We're all on the
Yes.
journey, inner, and we have an inner journey, but I think we also have our, I'll call it the exterior journey, right? Where,
Outer. Yeah.
outer. Okay. Yeah.
Inner, outer.
Um, yeah. Yeah. Gosh. Um, so I'm usually not this speechless. I'm like, kind of like going,
Uh,
oh my goodness. Um, so we know what your differentiator is. That's
yes.
like, we don't even have to talk
Yeah.
about that because you're speaking at this entire, time. Um, how, okay, how do you, I don't want you to give the cow away, it's like you give a little bit of milk, not the whole cow, but how do you guide somebody to that aha moment? Is it a series
Mm.
of questions? Is it having them go down the path themselves and then being like, oh, there it is? Like,
Mhm.
what do you do?
Mhm. Listen. I
Uh,
would say that
uh,
the kind of listening I do is, sometimes people call it intuitive listening, but I don't give it a label. I just feel like I'm wide open. I don't know why today so much of this travel idea is coming through for me. I guess I want to go somewhere and
I was
have
gonna say
have a
maybe you need
trip.
to go on a trip soon.
Yeah, this weekend I am going. I am going somewhere this weekend. But you say how? You have to hold people as if they feel like they're safe. it's so scary to move through fear. And there was this song, when you walk through the storm, keep your head held
Yeah.
high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the trail is a peaceful sky. And don't, that where the
Walk on,
birds are going to be
walk
singing.
on.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, walk on, walk on. I'm getting little chills because that just, my mom would take us to the Broadway musicals. And of course, that was kind of an infusion of values and what's possible. And I think that walk on is, I'm even feeling it right now, is
You're gonna make me
that's,
with
yeah.
hope in your heart, and you'll
You'll
never
never
walk alone.
walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that I think that's what I do. I think I hold possibility for people and I help them tap down in and move through the scary spaces and help them not be afraid, and then help them come out into the light, the other end of the tunnel. It
Wow.
is a journey, but there is a day where they get to say, hello, here I am.
But they're not on the journey alone, and I think that
Yes. Yeah.
is huge
Mhm.
because um, there are so many people out there that don't have that support, and they may never know that, and that kind of makes me sad in a way.
Mhm.
Um, and I will say that for anybody who's listening, and you have that fear, and um, you're on the journey, and you're just not sure where to go. Um, go to Dr. Doreen, because I think that, um, man, like I wish I met you, 7 years earlier. Um, I think that my journey would have been a lot different. But you're on LinkedIn. So how do people get hold of
Yes.
you?
Would be Doreen. I would like just people to reach out on email, Doreen at essentialspeaking.com. Doreen, Doreen at essentialspeaking.com. And then, of course, just the website, there's a contact. But I haven't talked about, and I won't, but people can go to Doreen7secrets.com, Doreen7secrets.com, and they'll get all seven. And the first one we talked about today is be still. I'll just say the last one is be yourself. But the journey.
Ah, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And if anyone ever tells you not to be yourself, walk away. Run. Don't even walk away, run. Um,
Yes.
well, I want to thank you so much for, taking the
Yes.
time today to speak with me and to honor my audience with your presence, because I think that um, you're you're very special, and I think that
Oh, thank you.
you sure as hell made me, you know, like have a couple of light bulb moments, during this, and I'm
Oh,
sure there are people out there that were going, oh my goodness, as well. Um, so thank you for that, and thank you for really for being you and for taking the time. But the last question that I ask all of my guests um, is, what lights your fire? And it can be personal, professional, just what is your passion?
oh, okay. My husband, Earl.
Oh, I
And we
love
did not get married until I was 60 years old, first time ever. And well, I had a lot of defenses. Nobody's going to get close to me.
Yeah, we
So
had that conversation.
I'm
Wow.
so glad I waited. And there's a book, You Can't Hurry Love. And that's partly what kept me on a path of, I know that I'll have really good, beautiful love somewhere down the line, kind of like this whole thing, keep on. And I did, and I found it, him. I found
Wow.
love, and I am loved. Yes. So that lights me up.
That is that is awesome. Um, so thank you again. I'm gonna say goodbye, and I will be right back. Um,
Okay.
wow, what an episode, right, everyone? Man, um, thank you all for taking the time, an hour plus, once in a while, for listening. And I really hope that from this episode, you gleaned um, something that you can take with you. If you have, share, subscribe, like, reach out to Dr. Doreen. Uh, and yeah, my mind is still a little blown. You all are like, haven't seen you like this. But again, thank you for taking the time and for the comments and for watching, and go out and find what lights your fire. See you next time.